Right, welcome to the Jurassic Coast. I'm Anthony Cline, an ambassador for the Jurassic Coast. I've been for a few years, and this is the Exmouth end of the Jurassic Coast. 94 lovely miles starting here, and the information board behind me is the board at the end of the main drive up to Orcombe Point, which we'll go to in a moment. And from this point onwards, if we go eastwards, we'll work our way through time, through the Jurassic Coast, and all the evidence that we will be having a look at other times. And the main thing to point out while we are here is the spiral of time, which you may be familiar with, and although you can't read it very well from there, we are just considering the time period from the beginnings of the Earth, which is basically the bottom of the spiral here, and that's 4,600 million years. 4,600 million, and a fair chunk of time. And we won't be worried too much about the first few thousand million until we get round to the top of the chart here. We're just dealing with the last 250 million years. Well, here we are a bit closer up, and hopefully be able to make out the fact that there are layers in the rock behind me, nearly horizontal, but the main ones going across the whole of the face may appear vaguely horizontal, but there are other layers that appear to be at an angle. We'll see more clearly shortly, but anywhere where there are layers at a different angle, that is a main feature of this bit of the rocks in this section of the coast, and that is for a reason. We'll go further along and have a look at some more of these layers with other layers at different angles. Right, one of the few places where I can get a bit closer for reasons that we'll see just around the corner, and that is you'll see the main layering, and these are the beds, the layers, which are predominantly horizontal, and then above there we've got the next unit which is at 30 degrees sloping in that direction. Now at the top we have got a layer which appears to truncate. That means these layers seem to stop when they get to the next layer up. And the reason for that is where these are produced. They are produced in an environment where there are currents. Could be wind currents, could be water currents. And in this environment, they are a bit of both, but predominantly we've got wind. And if we've got layers like that where they're quite sizable chunks within this cross-bedding unit, it's more likely to be deposited by wind in a particular environment. So we're dealing with a unit which is measured in metre or half a metre and not in millimetres. Well, if you're totally new to geology and rocks, perhaps just from an artistic point of view, you can see we appear to have a bright green rock here. But of course that is a growth from seaweed or sea, allowing material to appear on the surface of the rock. It's still red underneath. Above that there is a layer about a metre high, which looks like a lovely smooth layer of a lighter coloured material which is wet. And above that the red rocks we've been looking at. Of course that layer there is concrete, so it's very easy to misinterpret what is seen, and there are a number of places along the coast, particularly around Sidmouth, where they have put material to support some of the crevices in the cliffs to make it easier to walk by, which are not the original rock. So it's worth just checking out, is it the original rock, is it concrete, or is it a growth? And then of course at the top of the cliff, if you pan up, you'll see that there is a lot of grass and some soil, but also rock or material that appears to be a lot darker in colour, a darker red, and has got a few pebbles in it, but in the main it is a darker material. It's finer, more muddy, and that forms a different shape to the cliff. It's more crumbly than the base of the cliff, because the base of the cliff is predominantly sandstone, sand grain, cemented, and the top of the cliff is mudstone, finer, which is also cemented but not so well. And the two together form most of the units round this headland. Mudstone, sandstone, mudstone fine, sandstone coarse or coarser, sand grain size, and they alternate in many places. A bit more evidence as to what we're looking at along this section of coast. We've got the main chunky unit below me and towards the top of the cliff, which is the red sandstone, and in between we've got about a third of a metre where you've got apparently alternate layers of a lighter colour, grey green, which in places has a slight vertical element to it. So it's not a continuous layer in the same way, but something is joining the two lighter coloured layers together, the four lighter coloured layers together. What we've got here is a sandstone and a mudstone, some of which is lighter, where we have got predominantly sand grains and some other minerals and a cement which has got iron in it, and it becomes oxidised in a certain environment. And that oxidation gives it the red colour, the terracotta colour. But in places, some of those layers there, we have got a colour change where the oxidation either hasn't taken place or the reduction, the opposite, has allowed it to lose its red colour and turn to a greeny grey. And the environment where you get oxidation is predominantly where you have air, oxygen available, not in the sea, under the sea level, but not in water either, but above water, in air, where oxygen in the air can affect the iron, oxidize it and turn it red. So predominantly all the beds here at this end of the coast are red because they formed above water level, above sea level, and on land. Although not all the time exposed entirely to air, sometimes there's water involved. We're at Rodney Point here, which is only a few hundred yards around the coast from where we started, and the predominant material, top half of the cliff, is a very loose, muddy version of the red material, a loose mudstone where any water that comes down from above forms little rivulets where channels of a few tens of centimetres appear. And there are a couple of what appear to be stronger units that are a more sandy material, and at the base of that muddy unit we have got some more of the change of colour reduction from oxidation, where it's a light grey and in places a vertical join between the light layers. Now, it could be, when we interpret the whole series of bits of evidence together, that we can picture what probably this environment was in. So we'll go around and have a look further at what other evidence we've got.